Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another indie comic review, and in this indie comic review I'll be covering Kirkman's Firepower and Dan Didio's Ancient Enemies. I'll now get things organised for the first one that I'll be reviewing. So, jumping into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to have a look at the internal art and also some of the things that are happening story-wise with some of the characters. So as we move into the beginning of the story, we see that a bit of a practice session of sorts takes place between Owen and his wife, and he just wanted to make sure that it just wasn't a one-off thing and that she was able to pull off multiple, which was really good. And of course you see their kids in the background making their gross little sounds and also some of the other members of this particular martial arts clan. As we start to jump towards the middle of the story, we see Owen trying to help out another student or disciple that's there and trying to help him develop his firepower skill. And we can see that the character is having a problem, so he's coming in to help him out. And last but not least, we move towards the end of the story, to which we return to, I think it's meant to be Michigan. It's not very clear. One thing that this story needs to be a little bit more consistent on is pointing out locations, or being more consistent in the area of locations, and even putting it up in a corner just to let the audience know. But we get to see some of the events that are taking place there, and we finally move back to what's happening with Owen, and it looks like they're finally starting to be called in for some help. So for the internal art, I gave a 7.5 out of 10. I did quite enjoy in the story, and it really worked with the story. Now it's time for the next thing, and that is the area of the story rating. First things first, do we get any comic references to any of the previous issues? None at all. Please, at least bring in one or two. It wouldn't hurt the story. In fact, it would probably help with the continuity of the story. Next is the area of time. Do we get any indication of when some of these things are taking place time-wise? None at all. Again, it's important. It needs to be in the story, and it's not in the story. The locations, we understand one's sort of like at a temple of sorts, but we're not given its exact location. Is it in the Himalayas? Where is it? This is something that should be brought across, and a little bit more common knowledge, even if it's just stated in the previously area, just to point out what's happening in what areas of this universe. But last but not least, the cast of characters, to which we have Callie, Owen, Doug, his sister of course, Wei Lun, and also Ma Guang, who has been attacking the city. For the overall story rating in this, I give a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move on to Dan Didio's Ancient Enemies, issue 6, which is the last issue for this series for the time being. So, jumping in the first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? It does, to which it gets a 7.5 out of 10. I'll now move into the internal art, which we'll have a look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end, and also what's happening with the story in relation to the characters. Starting now. So as the story begins, we sort of move into the area of the Greater Good Company, and there's a bit of a discussion with some of the members that are in there. As we start to jump towards the middle of the story, we have the first responder making his arrival, but we also learn that whilst this is occurring, there are members who have the military on site in relation to this particular battle that's about to occur. Whilst this is happening, we have Rafe, or Tucker, the son of Rafe, who is going against someone in the streets who is connected to his mother. And of course, he reminds me a little bit like Gollum crossed with Bane. Gollum from The Lord of the Rings crossed with Bane. Just a little bit more weight to him. We start to move a little bit further into the story. We get members of the greater good and also the genie making himself present on the scene. And last but not least, we move towards the end, to which the mother, who plays the original Rafe, comes to find her son has been injured, and now she must try to resolve the situation. So for the internal art, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the area of the story. First things first, do we get anything in the area of time? No, we don't. Next is the locations. Now, this is some of the things that were brought up in both the previously as well as in some of the images that we used. We had the Citadel, we had the Americana, so they're the main locations, basically between two separate locations or nations. We also had the aquatics complex, to which the fight's going to be taking out in one of the locations. The cast of characters consisting of Ginny, the first responder. We had the greater good company of heroes. We have Racer Girl, sort of like out of the picture. We had Tucker, Morrigan, Zolan, Big Sister, who's sort of connected to the greater good, Rafe, Otis, who is that Gollum ugly looking type creature, and Evergreen, to which we didn't quite see, but her name was brought up in the story. But overall, this story gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.